Welcome, parents.
I'm Blanca.
And I'm Nancy, and thank you very much for joining us in this session. First, we're going to start with the home practice reviewing. I hope you had a chance to review your handout 9-1 and actually do it to help you solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I hope you guys had a chance to practice parents game, where we're learning how to give clear and direct instructions to our children.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Parents, if you go to your handout 10-1, we're going to talk about behavior cues, how to get your child to do or follow directions. Okay? So here you have a flow chart. This will show you how we give directions, or in a way of pyramid structure. Okay? So for example, one of the scenarios here that was giving, David, please shut the door. Okay? This is a situation when you give your child the command, David, you need to shut the door. You let the door open. Wait 5 seconds for the compliance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember, the 5 seconds that we wait is to give him time to process the thought or the command given. Okay? If David does a positive behavior and goes and closes the door, we reward. We reward by utilizing praise. Correct? David, thank you for closing the door or shutting the door. Okay? If David does not comply and he does a negative behavior and ignores us and says, I don't need to close the door, then you wait again, you give the direction with utilizing your magic words or your cues, your behavior cues, meaning David, you need to close the door or you need to shut the door. You're not being aggressive, you're not being rude, you're being forward and direct, okay? David, you need to close the door. Wait 5 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, again, to process the thought. David gets up, he shuts the door, reward automatically. David, thank you for paying attention or closing the door, okay? If David continues and does not shut the door, as told, you follow through with your consequence. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about setting limits and behaviors that you cannot ignore, okay?
Okay, parents, so now we're going to talk about 4 ways that we as parents can use to set limits for our children. It's very important to set limits and do it in a gradual way, starting from the least severe to the most severe. Remember, parents, that this is very important because we don't want to set limits in a very high standard without first trying the less severe methods. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to help you and guide you through so you can learn this process step by step.
Okay, parents, so as Nancy said, there are 4 ways to set limits. The first one is noticing and ignoring. We've talked and practiced here with you guys. You guys unconsciously maybe didn't realize but have been practicing during your child's game. Okay, noticing and ignoring is rewarding the good behavior and ignoring the bad. Okay? We're hungry. I wish you're here.
Okay, and now we're going to talk about the second method to set limits. And this is called positive practice, and it's in your handout session 10-2. This positive practice has 2 parts, and one of them is an example that I'm going to give you is when you want your child to do something. For example, if your child slams the door, and you don't like that, you want your child to close the door nicely when he enters the room, you're going to give him positive practice by telling him to go back, open the door, and close it in a nice way for 10 times. We can do this with our children for about 5 or 10 times. Do not exceed more than 10 times because this is going to overwhelm the child and it's not going to work. So we're just going to do it for 5 or 10.
Good. Part 2 to this is when, for example, in this situation, how Nancy explained, is when they shut the door and you have to tell them to go back. What about if they break something? Okay, there are some things that either have to be replaced, a window, for example. So in this situation, how you do positive practice is when you make the child do chores or activities to replace that window instead. Okay, whether it's through yard work, through chores, they have to replace it, they have to pay for it, they have to clean it up or fix it. Okay, you have seen the scenarios that we've done for you. You break the pot, okay, guess what? You go and clean up the dirt, okay? The purpose of this is for them to understand and take responsibility or assume responsibility for their actions, okay?
Yes, and acknowledging that every action that they take has a consequence.
Okay, so go to your handout 10.3. We're going to talk about timeout, which is the third method discussed in this session. Okay, timeout. What is timeout? Timeout is, it comes in two sessions, okay, two parts. When you remove the object or the problem from the child, and when you remove the child from the problem, okay? This situation, part one, removing the object or problem from the child, is in a situation where, for example, you have two children playing with a toy, okay? Let's say in this case, it's a car, and Nancy and myself are fighting for the same toy. The problem here or the situation is the toy. Both kids are playing or fighting for the same thing. You remove the problem away from the kids and you remove it temporarily. When the children decide to play or are playing nicely, then you give back the toy. Okay, that's one situation. Another one where timeout can be utilized is when you remove the child from the problem. In this situation is when you have two children playing with their respective toys or playing nicely. However, one of them starts playing rough with the toy or playing rough and trying to go into the other kid and try to push him around and stuff. This is where you remove the child from the scenario, okay? Because the other child is playing nicely and quietly, so you remove that child and put him in timeout. Parents, keep in mind how long to do this, okay? It is recommended that you use 1 minute per year. In this case, let's say I have a 4-year-old, okay? It's 4 minutes and timeout. When you do the timeout, make sure you pick a location or a place that it is kind of boring for them and not distracting. As far as the whole purpose of this is for the child to understand that this is not a place that he wants to be in, okay? A lot of our families choose to do the bedroom. You know, Johnny, you're gonna go to your room, okay? You're gonna be in timeout. However, in the bedroom, keep in mind that they have their toys, they have their bed, they might have a TV, okay? So instead of being a consequence, it becomes a reward for them, okay? A hallway could be something that other parents have utilized in the past, which is a hallway. It's plain, it's simple. So as parents, we could also keep an eye on them, making sure that they are not hurting themselves or doing other things, and also monitor that the child is sitting there, okay? So again, remember, keep in mind, the time spent in timeout is 1 minute per age, per year. Once the timeout is over, then you get the child and return them to the activity that they were doing. If this continues, you can practice timeout again. But then, therefore, you can bring him back after timeout. What happens if you set really quick the child longer than the 4 minutes or 5 minutes, depending on their age? What happens is the child forgets why he's there, okay? And the whole purpose of this is for them to understand and have a consequence. How Nancy said earlier, it's a way to understand that they have to be responsible for their actions, okay? Sometimes you turn around and you give them too much time and you forget. Also, when you return or remove a toy from your child, you forget to give it back. Always give the toy back after X amount of time, okay? Because then again, they have to learn the consequence, okay?
And it's very important that after the timeout is over, just forget about the problem, don't mention it, don't be sarcastic and say something like, oh, see, you should have behaved better and you would have done timeout. So just forget about the situation, don't talk about it anymore, and try to catch them doing good behavior and praise them for the good behavior. This is gonna help them stimulate and for them to behave the way you want them to. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so the fourth method is punishment, and we will be discussing this method in next session, which is session 11. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now we're gonna go to home practice, and please turn to your handout session 10.7, and this handout is called Using Timeout. In this handout, you guys are gonna practice how to use the timeout. So you're just gonna think about a behavior that you want to change from your child, a behavior that you don't like, and where you can utilize the timeout. You're gonna write down where you are gonna set your child to do the timeout, And what do you say? So what are you going to tell your child when he or she is in timeout, and how do you deliver the consequences? So this is a little guide for you to do the timeout, so whenever you are going to use the timeout, you are prepared to know where and how you're going to do it. Next is going to be your handout 10.8 and 10.9, which are similar. And in this handout, it's called limit setting worksheet. You're going to think about a behavior that you want to change, or you want your child to change, and you're going to write it down. You're going to go over the list and practice doing the methods that we talked about earlier. Remember, from the least severe to the more severe. For example, we're going to use the rewarding the good behavior. So if that does not work, the noticing and ignoring. So noticing that when your child does something good, and then ignoring the bad behavior, something that you can ignore. If it still doesn't work, then you move on to the positive practice, how you can utilize the positive practice to change his behavior. And lastly, if it doesn't work, then the timeout. You can go again back to the other handout, 10.8, to set the timeout for your child.
Okay, parents, also you have a worksheet in 10.10 and 10.11, which runs through. This one is discipline record worksheet, okay? What you're gonna do, you're gonna put the name of the person who's doing this, the problem behavior, okay? For example, you know what, the brushing the teeth. Oh my God, the brushing the teeth, okay? The child who you're practicing with. For example, if you have more than one kid in your home, who is this pertaining to, okay? The name of the child, wanted behavior, I want Nancy to brush her teeth at night. The date that you start doing this, and the goal. The goal is to accomplish or listen to our instruction, okay? So how it works, child did 1, you write it down. Again, remember, this is a worksheet so we could look back and see what we are doing or what the child is doing, and kind of keep track of, okay, is there progress? Okay, any progress is progress, okay? Child did what? Well, he didn't brush their teeth. They try to sneak away with going to bed without brushing their teeth. You did what? You turn around, you said, I need you to brush your teeth, or whatever command you use, okay? What did the child do or follow that? You write it down, and what do you do following that? You praise them after he or she did it, okay? So you're gonna continue to do this and take note of everything that you say. And again, the dates, that's what's giving you multiple spaces. You can write the dates. You tried this one night, the following night, the night after, okay? Remember, this is helpful worksheet that you look back and say, you know what? When parents are feeling hopeless and, yeah, this thing is not working, it's not working. You look back in your worksheets and you realize, like, hey, there is progress. She has been doing this, or I was giving directions that were not matching whatever I wanted him or her to do. Okay, so this helps us back. Okay, remember SFP, how it works step by step. We master one technique or one tool, and we follow to the next. Okay.
And don't forget, lastly, to keep on practicing your parents' game. Like Blanca said, it's very important to be clear when you give instructions to your children. So parents' game is going to help you a lot, giving clear and specific instructions to your children. Thank you for watching. And remember, keep participating so you can have a chance to win the family prize.
What?
And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.